When I was in high school, I felt like nobody liked me, nobody could accept me. I couldn't get the love and acceptance I wanted. And I remember I had this thought of like, well, since nobody likes me or will accept me, maybe I can just try to be skinny and pretty.
Disclaimer. This channel is for informational and educational purposes only. It is not a substitute for professional therapy, counseling, or medical advice. The content shared here does not constitute or replace therapeutic services. Please consult a licensed mental health professional for personal support.
Hi, I'm Katie.
And I'm Diane.
15 years ago, we met in rehab.
And we've been besties ever since.
We've both worked hard at healing our addictions.
And we've gone on to build meaningful lives.
I'm a licensed therapist and a yoga instructor.
And I'm an embodiment coach and tantra healer.
When we get together, our conversations can get intense.
But they're always lively and full of surprises.
Yes! And no topic is off limits.
And that's our show.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of We Can Relate. So thrilled to have you. For those who haven't yet, be sure to like, save, and subscribe so you're always in the know. Today's topic is a really interesting one that we're teasing apart. A little complicated, but we think you'll get a lot out of it. So, the topic today is the masks we wear. And we're demystifying the pros and cons of persona. Persona. So Katie, will you first start off, as we like to, define and some etymology, give us a lay of the land.
Okay, so persona is the outward-facing mask or role that the individual presents to the world. It allows for social adaptation, but does not represent the entirety of the person. The persona is often shaped by cultural, social, and familial expectations. So persona is really kind of like an intermediary between you and what you want to show people and the collective. So it sort of sometimes can feel like it's a chosen thing, a conscious thing, and sometimes we're not conscious of how we present.
Okay, so is it sort of like, would you say persona is sort of like the filter of different aspects of ourself that we want the world to interface with?
Yeah, that's well said. And it's also a way to hide things we don't want people to see.
Okay, so we bring forth different pieces that we put on different masks depending on the context.
That's right.
And sometimes, well, tell me, what was I going to ask?
Why it was important?
Yeah, why does it matter?
Well, we both were talking about why we wanted to bring this topic to you today. And one of the main reasons is that when you know about personas and that other people are always going to be picking and choosing what they show you, you can be more safe in how you relate with people. And you can also become more aware that there's a lot of things that they're not showing you yet that are also there. And then when you look at yourself, the thing that's important about your persona is self-exploration and understanding that we show things to the world for reasons. And so this is another way to become more self-aware. Why did I decide to present as the intellectual? Or why am I presenting as, the goth person,
Oh, this is really interesting too, because then we also get to reflect and ask ourselves, not only it's what does this persona that for whatever reason I value, what purpose does it serve? Why is it something I value? But it's interesting because I was thinking about how sometimes it can reflect an authentic part of ourselves, but also it can reflect an aspirational part of ourselves, but it can be hard to keep up. And that's the dangerous piece maybe of interfacing. You said something when we were doing episode prep about we don't meet the person, we meet the persona. And sometimes I think, and actually many times, I think people can maybe give a mask or a persona that isn't sustainable and can't be upkept, or the veneer starts to fall apart and crumble, and it's not Yeah.
It's not that's exactly right. And Jung actually talked about it. He said, and I don't know if I fully agree with this, we'll kind of talk about that as we go through this episode, but he said that persona is all of that which a person is not, but which the person and the collective thinks he is.
Oh.
So it's interesting. It's like,
That sounds like a negative, for
Yeah,
sure, because it sounds fake.
yeah, and I think maybe that was the aspect from which he was talking about. I'm not sure. I can look up the exact quote and maybe put it in the notes for you guys. But we are going to get into positive and negative aspects.
Well, I'm really quick. Persona, and this is part of where I struggled a bit with this, and part of why it's important is because these things can be dicey, but it matters because, and coming back to why it matters is one of the things, and you mentioned this a little, is the more aware, the more consciousness we bring to ourselves, as well as being aware of what's out there in the world, but about ourselves, we have more of an ability, more self-agency to recognize, okay, is what I'm presenting to the world an authentic representation of myself? And maybe only some of it. Maybe I'm not sharing everything right off the bat with everybody because it's either not appropriate for the circumstances, or I don't know this person well enough yet. But I think people really suffer, I know I have, when the presentation doesn't actually align either at all or anymore with the person I am today, or the person who the person is. There can be a lot of pain feeling trapped by it. So that's interesting about the Jung quote, because it's everything that one is not.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. Again, that's why I said I'm not sure if I agree with that.
Because it could be.
It could be, but it doesn't necessarily mean it is.
Yeah. Was there more you wanted to share here?
Well, just the piece around the etymology. It's a Latin origin, and the term persona comes from the Latin word for a mask used by actors in the Roman theater. These masks represented the characters being portrayed on stage, highlighting the idea of presenting an outward appearance or role.
Okay. Yeah, I like this because it makes me think of the theater, the emblem, or the, what do you call it? The logo or something of
the two masks.
The two masks, the black and white, the happy, sad, which makes me think of light and dark, the shadow self, the different aspects, and almost a yin yang of the black and white. And so it's interesting.
It is interesting. They're the masks we choose or we don't.
Or that are maybe put on us with conditioning.
Yeah, I think it can be all of that. It's and that's kind of what we're going to explore, what's conscious, what's unconscious. So one of the stories, we wanted to bring in our own stories with persona. One of the things I thought of was how when I was a kiddo, maybe like 15, I had this thought of, this is when I was in high school, I felt like nobody liked me, nobody could accept me. I couldn't get the love and acceptance I wanted. And I remember I had this thought of like, well, since nobody likes me or will accept me, maybe I can just try to be skinny and pretty. And that was, of course, when my bulimia started and all of this. But so I guess the persona was, I'll just be this skinny, attempting to be skinny and pretty girl. But inside, what I wanted was connection, and I couldn't have that. The other thing is, because I started presenting that way, or I tried to present that way, how effective that was is another story altogether. But I lost touch with all the other parts that are me, the nerdy part, the fun, outgoing part, the silly part. I used to make all these crazy faces and like crack my family up and stuff. And not that I don't ever do that now, but that persona, I think, changed me.
Well, and you say not that I don't do that now, but you also don't lead with that. These other parts of yourself, I feel, are stronger, are more forward facing. The value, the understood value in them, but also, it's interesting the choice of, I'm going to choose to lead with this, to try to find some power or find my way in the world, because I'm celebrated if I am this type of person. As we go through this episode too, an invitation to everyone listening or watching, start to think about, okay, what are some of the masks I wear? And knowing that they can be representations of your truest self, but just what are the ways you've identified yourself to the collective, and why?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And I think for me, that's where I have struggled with, is persona conscious or unconscious? And I think it's really a bit of both, because certainly that was a conscious choice, right? But there are other ways that I'm sure I present or have presented that I had no awareness I was presenting that way.
Can you give an example?
I've been told that from people that I can be intimidating in the sense of like I'm hard to get to know at first. And, I don't necessarily always feel that inside. Like I want connection, but I can present as kind of, I guess, an intense person, which I didn't ever really realize.
Yeah, and as somebody who knows you intimately and well, I've been with you in the pain of that your authentic self. I know you to be so loving and warm and one of the best friends one could ever hope for to have. And I know you that way, but I do also know that that's feedback you've received of just the impression you get and how lonely that's felt because it's not intentional, or it's just the way people maybe perceive, and that there's some loss there of one of the things, a loss there of connections and relatedness with people that would be your people. Because one of the one of the things that one of the positives of persona is how we show up and present to the world helps us signal to our people to find our community and the place where hopefully we feel we belong and are welcomed. Just really quick, to help anybody that's still kind of trying to understand, some examples of persona might be, let's say, the intellectual or the goth persona, or the muscle gym goer person. And I don't know if there's anything else that comes up.
Yeah, there's so many of those.
The rocker.
Yeah, what are the masks that we wear, that we show to the world? Yeah. And what part of those, I think what's so interesting about this episode is like we're exploring what part of those masks are truly resonant with the person. Like what part of those masks they really feel it and they want to show that to you, and it is part of them.
It's self-expression.
Yeah, and what part of it or how much of it is hiding something that they're insecure about. Like if you think of the big muscly gym guy, a lot of times, and not always, but there's an insecure person in there.
Or the workaholic.
Yeah.
Maybe they feel like they need to be the provider, or with us, the skinny, pretty girl might, the over-identifying of, that's the only way I can have a sense of power or belonging in the world, it can feel like a trap and a cage. And I know for me, were you going to say that?
No, I was just going to ask you about your story, but you're already going there.
Yeah. It's interesting, I've been thinking too about how my persona or personas have shifted over time and how they haven't. But similarly, I was an awkward kid, I was bullied, and I fell into a depression around 7th grade, and in that I lost my appetite. I started losing weight pretty quickly and was celebrated for that socially of, suddenly I was becoming like, I don't know, pretty or something. I don't know. I was it was
I never knew that about you.
Yeah.
And that's the same as when I started throwing up. That was the first time in my life anyone ever gave me a compliment. It's like, oh, you're skinny, but you're the good skinny. And it was like, oh, fucking finally some validation.
Somebody sees me. Well, and it was interesting because I was withdrawing into a depression for the first time in 7th grade. And then I remember a girl saying something like, oh, Diane, she's like, she goes, I remember this. She goes, can you say anorexia, bulimia? Oh, wow. I'd never heard of them. Yeah. And I was like, what's that? I remember going to the library, pre-internet, and looking up everything I could, and then being like, oh, that's what this is. And people are responding, and suddenly I'm being seen. So I remember being like, I'm going to learn everything I can, and this is the thing, because now suddenly people are noticing. My parents started getting worried. Suddenly they were paying attention. It was like, oh, this is a currency. And I've got some leverage here, some power, and then
That's a great way to say it, Di.
What is
that this is a currency.
This has a currency.
And that
I'm being rewarded.
Yeah, and that currency of that particular lens, or what would become a persona, I guess, in a certain way, or the opposite, where you're hiding it. But that was powerful.
It was powerful. And I finally felt like, oh, I've got something, and people are worried. And yeah, that's kind of where some of the identified patient stuff comes in. But oh, who cares if I'm sick and hurting? I matter. And I leaned in all the way. I suddenly boys were noticing, and it was like, okay. And I started paying attention to that's when noticing labels and how do pretty girls look. And I was like, okay, Project Hot Girl or Project Makeover, and started paying attention to what I wore, and just adopting all the things of like, this is how I'm going to rise and matter. But similarly to you, I really just wanted closeness and connection and love, and to feel safe and wanted. And those things weren't getting that. I was, in fact, in my quirkiness that I've always been, I was being made fun of and shut out. And so it was this, bring her back down. Don't lead with that mask. That mask goes in the closet.
Well, maybe that wasn't the mask, right?
Yeah.
The quirky you sounds like a part of you.
Yeah.
And it would have been something if you had not felt bullied, or if you felt safe, that she could have lived, the quirky her could have lived. But sometimes those parts of us get bullied or shamed. Certainly that happened for me too. And then they go fall in the shadows. And so maybe that's kind of what Jung was saying, is like, now I'm presenting like, I'm this, I don't know, whatever LA girl type persona, but that isn't really what I related to or who I was.
Yeah.
And then in that, the irony is that then we lose the connection we would have wanted anyway.
Right. And the people that I was drawing in, because I was hiding the deeper self, invalidating her, throwing her in the closet, the silly, I didn't have the deeper friendships anymore, but I didn't really want to be in the mean girl crowd, because that's not who I am either. Of like, I didn't care about those particular values. And so it was just really interesting. And for those of you watching or who've seen us, there might be a part that's like, oh, okay, you're saying that hurt you, and that's what you led with, and that was your currency. Well, if you take a look, I'm wearing makeup, I've got obviously I'm somebody who cares about how she presents, in the sense of the long hair and nails, etc. And that's okay too. And for a while, when I started connecting with how painful it was to lead with and over-identify, feeling trapped by, reduced to, self-reducing to, leading with aesthetics, it was really painful and really damaging. And so then I rejected it and was like, okay, I just want to keep it real, and I'm not going to wear any makeup, hair pulled back, dark oversized clothing, hiding that persona, because I didn't want to draw in the wrong people, and I was afraid of that, or what does it mean about me if I value these things. And so just speaking into, for me, these things get to be an evolution, right? Because the consciousness came in, the awareness, but also for myself, I get to enjoy how I show up in the world. And it gets to be, for me, but also for the collective. But it's not like, this is the only thing I have, or this is the centrifugal point of who I am. Well, I'm hearing you say you're not over-identified with your persona. Yeah.
So you can say, look, I'm aware that I enjoy beauty, or I like makeup, or I like sparkly things, and I can show up in the world and I can present that, but I know that I am not that,
I'm not
only that.
Like, I'm not a woman that feels she needs to or will, because frankly I can't be bothered, to wear makeup and heels and whatnot, to just go to the grocery store or get the mail. And that was a person I was by late high school of like, I can't go out without a full face. And the shifting point for me actually in that was once I was walking past myself in the mirror and I wasn't wearing makeup and I looked over and I was like, and I was very like, not nice to myself. And I was like, very unkind. And I was like, I don't like that. And I want to make peace and friends with my face and what I look like organically, and just also the types of people when I led only with that versus my soul. And so now wonderfully, I feel like I enjoy this part of me. It's a piece of me, but I wouldn't name it as part of my top 5 qualities. And, you know, people look at us and maybe get an idea, but then hopefully in starting to just share and have conversation and the other parts of, if I'm getting this right, my persona that I lead with when people first meet me, hopefully those come into play and I start to find my people in that way of this is who I am. So,
Yeah. Well, one of the things you were saying earlier, and maybe this will tie in as we move through positive and negative aspects, I'm not sure, but you were saying how you're a warm, kind person and kindness is so important to you. And I know you to be that way. Like, I know you're a lover of animals and she has a quality of like when she meets people, she always wants them to know that like, there's sort of like I'm a safe place.
You're
welcome. Like, I really feel that from you.
Come as you are. Yeah.
And she was like, well, does that mean if I am showing that, does that mean it's not authentic?
Right.
And it's like, that's the cool thing about this topic is no, that's a part of you that's authentically you and that you want to and are choosing to show.
Very much. It's a principle and a value, like through and always has been. I was the 8-year-old way before LGBTQ was a thing that became more of the norm. I remember being 8 years old and sticking up to the third grade, sticking up to the 5th grade tall bully. Don't call him the F word. That's a word we don't use anymore. And don't do that. That's not okay. Or being in the carpool on the way to choir and saying one of the mothers was going off about gay people and how they're abominations and they go to hell. And and I said straight up, I don't think there's anything wrong with being gay. I think again 8 years old. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Good for you.
Full stop to this mother. And later, my mom got a call from one of the other moms in carpool because unbeknownst to this mom, I don't know if it would have made a difference, but one of the girls in the car had an aunt who had a life partner and was a lesbian. I don't know her anymore, but is a lesbian, but I don't know.
Unless she died, then she could have been a lesbian and she died, but you don't know. So.
Or maybe changed. Yeah. Who knows?
I got the download.
We all get this. So, but that the mom called and thanked my mom and said, you know, Jill, this child came home and was in tears about what this mother had said, and thank you for raising. I'm getting emotional, like a daughter that stood
so
up.
Kind.
And so that's all that was really special. And so that's always been in my nature. But then my question to you as we were talking about this and prepping was, well, if that's important to me to present with, does that mean it's a mask that's fake or insincere? But no, that's important for me to lead with, but then also standing behind it. And that's where we were talking about how veneers can sometimes break down and break apart if that's not somebody's authentic. If beyond the persona isn't authentic, that's where it can maybe become manipulative or diabolical, or what are your thoughts there?
Yeah. I'm sorry, what was the question?
Oh, just my fear had been, if my persona is a warm and kind person, can it still be my authentic self? Yeah. And you're saying yes.
Of course. And could somebody use that as a persona to hide something diabolical, like a Ted Bundy? Yes. And the other piece of this I would add is that the difference is you are also conscious enough to know, as am I, that we both have a cold, hard bitch in our shadow.
I was going to say that too.
I mean, a judgy, cruel, that's a part of me too. And it's so much more important to know that and own it because, and this is another reason why persona is so important, because if I can go, look, I want to lead with my kindness in my heart, and I'm not aware that I have a cold, hard bitch somewhere, she will come out in the worst ways. But if I can be aware that this too is part of me, this too is part of being human, I have much more control over how I present in the world and what I want to do with that part of me and how I want to work on that so that I can hopefully heal that more and more.
That's beautiful. And that's where, again, making the consciousness, making peace with our shadow, acknowledging, the things that trigger us in other people usually are data and reflection of parts of ourselves we're not integrated with. And so being able, I was like, it's funny you say this because I was like, yeah, kind, warm-hearted, but absolutely, I don't know if cruel's the word, but yeah, probably triggered, because there can be a part of me that reflexively, when triggered or feels unsafe, some pretty unkind stuff, thoughts, hopefully not anymore because I have consciousness. I can respond versus react, but yeah, that's still a part of me too. And so it's learning to manage these. And that doesn't necessarily, if I'm hearing you correctly, mean that the warm, loving piece is fake. It's just remembering or taking account of, it's sort of like how do I want to show up in the world, and is it consistent with my principles, my values, what I feel is my authentic self?
Yeah. And we're not obligated to show all parts of ourselves, nor is that a good thing. And there's so much to say on that. I'm feeling a little bit like I want to check in with you. Does that come up in our positives and negatives, or should we go there now?
Yeah, go there now. I think the last thing I'd like to say in this is, and I think probably just a reminder to myself, it's interesting. We're about to get into how people can feel trapped by this, and certainly being warm, kind, nice has been a trap in ways because, I named and claimed that there's a piece of me that can have not so pleasant thoughts and whatnot, but there's also a warrior and a defender that has every right and needs to come forward when my boundaries are egregiously crossed and whatnot. And guess what? This queen will come, that's not happening. And it's not even about come for you in the sense of attack so much as that's not happening. And I had to learn to strengthen the strong back stuff. And that didn't mean that the heart
isn't real.
Wasn't also real.
That's right.
It's so interesting and
I know.
Yeah.
I know. It's like people, and one thing I always say about persona is that it's also situational. Like if you look at someone and they behave differently in different areas, within reason, that's normal. I behave differently with Diane than I do with my parents sometimes,
or
with my patients, or whatever, or my boyfriend.
Right.
And it doesn't mean that anybody's getting a fake version of me. It's like, this is the hat that I'm wearing right now.
Yeah.
And when I'm with my patients and I'm in therapist mode, sometimes I think they wonder if that's really me, but it's totally really me because, and also I let my personality come out. Like my patients know me, but it's like, that is a facet of who I am. Am I going to get up and am I going to wear the low cut shirt and everything? The shorts? Probably not. Am I going to get up and bust out dancing? No.
Right.
But it could happen. But no, there's certain hats you wear and that's normal. So,
right. I love that. That's it's very true. It makes me think of, I, about a year and a half ago now, going on, I quit a corporate job that was very, very corporate. And they knew I meditated. That was the things you talk about, coffee, at the water cooler. Then I meditate, I'm spiritual, but they didn't know, that I was Tantra certified or some of the history, some of the things that are now out there and that I'm open to naming and claiming or sharing with our audience in the world. But I'm no longer bound by the expectations of the corporate world. It wouldn't have been appropriate.
No.
And sometimes I wonder if they've found the show and been like, wow, had no idea.
She had that. Yeah.
But now I'm in a place where the social construct is different, so it isn't relevant. But at the time, in that container, it wouldn't have been appropriate. So, or think about the things we don't say in front of grandma or at church.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
So,
it doesn't mean that you're being fake. It means you're not being that other part of yourself.
Right.
So
corporate world is corporate world.
Yes.
Yeah. So where do we want to head next?
Okay. So let's look at our little notes here. So we talked about it being the positive aspects of persona are that it's necessary to get along in society. We need it. It helps you share with the world parts of who you are, what you're about, and find your people. Helps you protect what you don't want to share, what you don't want people to know. So I think we kind of weaved in the more positive things about persona, and the other pieces were what you mentioned about there's more to say about being trapped by your persona. And also the other side of that is people with no persona.
I was about to ask you about this, and this was something when we were prepping. I was like, can you say more about this? Like, what does it mean to have no persona? Because everybody shows up in the world unless they're, you know, isolated in the rural toolies, you know? So
yeah, I mean, I think we all actually know people with no persona, because it's that person that, you know, they go into a social setting and they don't pick up on any social cues, or that whatever's in their head, it just comes out of their mouth, like no filter type of a person. If you know someone where you're in a group and it's like it starts to feel awkward, or like they just don't know that like you don't need to share that, or like, and
they
that
can't pick up on social cues maybe?
That's a part of it. And I think having no persona also, it's like you have a harder time in the world typically.
Do you mean maybe like, I'm trying to dial this in, make sure I understand and our audience understands. So would this be somebody that they just maybe go on and on and on about themselves, or their drama, or no filter in the sense that they're almost combative, like they counter whatever anybody says, or
that's a good way to say it.
Could being that be a persona, even of I'm the contrarian, or
Sure.
I'm the drama queen, king, whatever.
Yeah, I absolutely could.
Because when I thought of no persona, I was thinking of somebody that's bland to a degree of like very milquetoast, like I don't know, what do you like? Like doesn't have opinions, doesn't, almost like an amoeba, or like a formless personality, or no personality.
Yes.
We know people like that too, right?
You're asking two questions, I think.
Okay.
You're asking, one, could those be personas?
Yeah, like the person with no filter, or the contrarian, or the drama king, queen.
Yes.
Yeah.
And two, I think the second question in there is that an example of people with no persona?
Yeah, because when I think of no persona, what I went to was, I'm thinking of the person that, I don't know, has no opinion, is sort of like a wilted flower in the sense of like, very apathetic, very kind of unmemorable, like just
that's
sort of
interesting,
bland.
because you're thinking of it like no personality.
Yeah. How does persona differ from personality? Here's a whole nother tangent, but go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, it's similar probably, but it's, I think certainly the answer to that question is yes and. So could you adopt the role of being the apathetic person? Sure. Could you adopt the role of being, I'm going to be the rebellious contrarian? Sure. But I think when someone has no or very little persona, oftentimes they're neurodivergent, which of course is not their fault, or they have an inability to read social cues.
Sure.
So that's a piece of that.
Some people can be really difficult for them. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and that's a different thing. Or it can be that they just don't have that capability, like they haven't developed enough of an instinct to understand how the world works and what is appropriate, if that makes sense.
So maybe the way they show up is the same no matter who the, like...
Exactly, that's a good way of saying it.
Okay, so it doesn't matter if I'm at a job that they struggle to hold a job because of this reason, or they alienate because it's like, whoa, that's information to just keep between you and... Or maybe I was thinking when you that quote about we don't meet the person, we meet the persona. And then after, if we really get to know somebody, we go deeper and get to know more and more and more. That's appropriate, the layers of the onion, right?
That's right.
But maybe this is a person that just...
What you see is what you get.
Word vomit, like, blah, 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 blah. What you see is what you get, no matter who you are, where I am, if you're at the barista or, you know, okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. Like telling about your medical details maybe to the like, and it's just like, this is not appropriate, or I just met you.
Yes, that's exactly that type of a person.
Interesting.
With
So
no
that's
persona.
no persona.
Or you know, very weak persona maybe, or something, or not developed.
Yeah. That's so interesting.
And I think it's a good thing to talk about it too in terms of authenticity, right? A lot of times people think if you have a persona, you're not authentic, or
If you wear masks.
yeah.
Yeah.
But we're talking about it as that is part of being human.
Yeah.
That's sort of the simple way to say it.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense, because one of the things I appreciated you saying is it's also a reflection of the things we don't necessarily want the world to know or to see, and or aren't ready for somebody to know yet. Until do I feel safe with you? Is it okay to share these realities or these truths about my deeper authentic selves or the things I've gone through? And now that I'm saying that, I'm feeling a little ironic that we have a show where it's all out there, but it's hopefully in the service of part of, for me, the sharing parts of myself that I haven't felt comfortable ever doing so before, is in hopes that for those of you out there that can relate or maybe feel alone or lost, or just that the evolution of who we are can grow. It can and does get better when we put in the work. So that's,
And I would say, as much as, on top of that, as much as we're out there and we're being very authentic and real and, sharing things about ourselves that are real, we aren't sharing everything.
True.
Right? No,
Facts.
Nobody gets everything. There's certain
Sure.
things we keep between us. We're also not showing up without makeup on.
Yeah,
So that's
at
a
least.
side. So that's a side of us you're not seeing necessarily, because we're not showing you. So I think
I love that this is a topic that there's just so
murky.
much
It's like a
here.
murky.
Yeah, I actually wasn't sure I wanted to do it because I was like, this feels murky. And you were like, I think it's a good thing. 'Cause
Yeah.
there's a lot here, so I'll be excited to hear just experiences you have with this, or how you...
How do you show up in the world?
How do you show up in the world, and what functions it serves, and how has it served you, and how has it harmed and felt oppressive? So with that, is there anything more in terms of positives with persona that you wanted to say?
No, just that I think it can just be a way to share, like we were saying, self-expression. Like I used to have really short hair and I had the side of it like shaved, and I loved that. And it was sort of a way of me showing like
Edgy.
I'm edgy, or I'm, and look, I don't know if I'm edgy. Maybe that's the whole thing, is I'm not edgy. And,
I think
and
there's
wanted
a part
to
of you that's for sure
that's
edgy.
true.
It's like
Or
kinda
the long
cool.
nails or whatever. Like people hate the nails, some people, and some people love them, but it's like, I don't care. It's an expression of something about me, and I want you to know this about me. Like it's a little bit of my way of being rebellious. I'm not, or it was perhaps, but I'm not going to just wear the short nails and have the mom hair just because I didn't want to be seen that way. And I'll let you guys do the analysis on me for that, because I don't want to think about it right now.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
All right, so going more into the negative sides of the masks we wear, a big one that we've already spoken into a little bit is just the way they can be, the pain we can feel when these parts of ourselves are no longer a representation of, or never were, maybe, if the expectation growing up in a family where it's like you are expected to be the fill in the blanks, straight A student, the religious, these principles and ideas, and then the individuation happens, or the growth, and it's like that's actually doesn't align with my real sense of self, or evolving, growing, and being like, I've developed these surroundings, I've over-identified as somebody that's a workaholic or fill in the blank, and I don't like how this feels. I don't like this environment. I want to break free. That can be a really painful place to be. I'm thinking of somebody I know that I've worked with, heartbreaking, who came to me because he felt so out of alignment with his entire world since childhood, the expectation, growing up basically in a religious cult, and then developing a career in the religious community, becoming a leader in this way. And he's like, I'm more of a spiritualist. I really don't like these aspects. I interface with, in my particular religious community, there's so much hypocrisy. Yet I feel trapped and suffocated because this is how I not only provide for my family, I'm extremely successful, but my the company I lead I give jobs to people, that people depend on me, and I kind of don't really want this isn't what I want to even do anymore. But if I leave, will my family reject me? Will my partner reject me? Will my children reject me? Will my entire community, as I've known it since childhood? Also, what will I do with my life? And so not feeling safe to break out and show up as, in this different way that was really the organic truth. And how and where does one start to like bring that in and break free when the risk and cost feels so high?
Yeah, I mean, that's
So heartbreaking.
It's heartbreaking, and it's so sad because that's an example of a person who feels trapped by his persona and it's not real. And then what that makes me think of actually is somebody you used to know who was so identified with his persona that even the partner he ended up with is like an extension of his persona. Like he has her wear the same clothes he wears to that degree. Like that's how much he's identified with. I'm a successful Hollywood guy and I'm so cool and everybody likes me. And it's like, I saw through it. We both see through him. But now, yeah. Well,
I was really young when we were together, and the expectation was made very clear. And this was back when I was such an overarching people pleaser, and didn't really have
21, right?
Yeah, 21.
Really?
Didn't
Yeah.
have a sense of self. He was twice my age, and it was. We've talked about this in another episode of just narcissistic, codependent trauma bond. But yeah, it was very much like, oh, okay, like this is who you expect me to be. It was so painful though, because it was made very clear that this is like, let's go shopping for you, and the shopping sprees, and it felt fun and exciting, but I wasn't picking the clothes. It was, this is what you're expected to wear, and like
you're an extension
and a peer
of me
besides
and my
me,
persona.
very trophy oriented. It was very also to be the groupie, because he was very successful, #1 fan role, as well as literally said to me, why would you need to finish college when we're going to get married, you're going to have our children, you're going to take care of them in the household. And that to me that did reach my soul. It was like, oh, that's not I don't if that's a persona. It was a role, a lifestyle that I knew I would be miserable in. Not to say there's anything wrong with being somebody that loves to take care of the family and the home and the household and all that.
That's just not you.
It's just not me. And I know my path was like, yeah. That's not, but I remember like being asked sometimes, like, you're gonna wear that or go out like that. And it was also expected to be to be in a good mood. I remember once having to cry because of how he treated me, and he was like, I'm not here for this. You have to go to the bathroom, get yourself together, and we're gonna go out. We have somewhere to be, and if you can't do it in 5 minutes, I'm putting you on a plane and sending you back out. It was a distance relationship, and it was just, this is the expectation. And who knows if he's evolved and it's a happier relationship now?
It's not.
But
the wife wears the same clothes he does. It's not. No, sorry.
Yeah.
I'm just going to be
know.
really real.
Yeah.
But anyway, and that's a whole bunch of things woven in. It's not just persona, but I think it is an example of someone who's like, I'm so identified with this. I need you to actually reflect it back to me.
Well, yeah. And I remember the night it became physical, and I called the police, and it was this, you're going to ruin my career. The concern was, how could you call, they're coming, like, how could you do this to me? How could you ruin my career? Not, are you okay? I just assaulted you. Yeah, just, next to moving on from that, one of the questions I had for you in prepping too is, is power couples, or can couples be a joint persona, or maybe even a family? I'm thinking of like shows maybe where the family puts on a persona, or maybe the Kardashians, or all kinds of shows, personas.
Yeah, sure. I think so. It's what we're presenting. One of the thoughts I had was like the happy American family, and the dad, I like to sometimes watch the murder shows of like, these crazy things. And well, actually, this is a good time to bring in this quote, because then I'll bring in the example that I thought of. But there's a quote by Marie-Louise von Franz, and she says, suppressed and wounded instincts are the dangers threatening civilized man.
Let's read that again, always.
Suppressed and wounded instincts are the dangers threatening civilized man.
Tell us how that relates.
This suggests an overemphasis on persona and that it can lead to the suppression of natural instincts, causing psychological imbalance. And so what that means is that if you're so identified with, like, I must be the provider and I must be present that happy American family. It's like a lot of times when somebody in the family, child or man or whoever, kills the whole family or kills someone in the family, it's because nobody knows, right? Everyone's like, you would never know.
They go crazy or something?
Well, yeah, I think they've suppressed so many actual aspects about themselves. Like maybe they don't want to be tied down. Maybe they don't want to be the provider, but they never learn to address that consciously. It's like then they wipe out their family and everyone around them, all the neighbors go, they were such a nice people. We had no idea this was going on. And it's like, yeah, because that was suppressed. And so there's some wisdom in this quote of like, you need to learn to have the things in your shadow appropriately, to be conscious of them, to not shove them down and over-identify with just one part of yourself, because we are all so many things. You know?
Yeah, yes, all so many things. And it's so painful and isolating to feel trapped or suffocated or over-identified with one aspect or a non-aligned aspect, an insincere something. It's just, it's heartbreaking. And I would say it's really interesting because a lot of the people I work with and a lot of my own pain has come from that disconnect of the struggle, the pain of showing up with a more honest representation of the other pieces and the other parts and holding space for them. The struggle to integrate and be more of the whole.
More of who we are.
More of who we are in an appropriate way.
Yeah.
With, a degree of transparency.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it's another piece that, was there more you were going to say?
No.
Before? Just another piece that can be really difficult and dangerous about these masks, which we touched on just a little, is... have you found out that somebody presented one way and it turned out to not be backed? This is who I am, but not really. And how painful that can be, because if we meet the persona, the outward facing, and then we feel safe or it resonates and we start to go down the path of developing intimacy, sharing and bearing more of ourselves, putting in roots with somebody, but they're still holding back or not being appropriately transparent about the truth of who they are, or people will be like, oh, I need more transparency, or they weren't transparent. It's like they maybe have a whole other life, or for me, for example, with that partner we just spoke of, it's like there was a whole dark side that I didn't meet until I was deeply hooked, problematically hooked into the relationship. And by then getting out seemed impossible. But just the pain of the betrayal of, oh, this is a part of who you are. I had no idea.
The hardest thing is when they have no idea.
What did I say?
Well, I mean, I'm just adding on to what you're saying.
When they're unconscious, you mean?
Yeah, when they're like somebody who you believe them. We've talked about this in other episodes, but you believe them and their persona because they believe it, because they're over-identified with it. And so they think they're X, Y, or Z, and they don't even know that they're lying.
Right, because the tricky, and this is the dark, is when they do know, and they're being tricky, and I'm thinking of cheaters, for example, who just, and everybody's in their process working things out, but if they know, they're being disingenuous. But if they're so disingenuous with themselves, yeah, you're right. A little side story that came up realizing that is I had a different relationship with somebody really lovely, and but I was so relegated to I'll never get past my bulimia that I never told him. And we were together going on 3 years, and we lived together. I was really good at hiding it. He had no idea until it came out because I wrote a journal entry. I borrowed his computer to share a journal entry. I'd had a really bad day with it very privately, which was isolating. But I somehow it synced to all of, I'd put a password lock on the journal entry. And I even said, I'm so glad that there's a password protection on this because nobody can know because I'm never going to get better. And it was, I was word purging. But somehow it password protected only on the computer, but somehow synced to like his Apple Watch, his phone, everywhere else. And he got this full journal, and it was meant to happen because, but
the symbolism of that.
Yeah. And he was so devastated, and like I had no idea, and it was so devastating for both of us because it hurt him that I didn't feel I could share it. But to me, I was like, why would I share it if this is just going to be a part of my life until I die? And there's nothing, I really believed it was better kept private because why burden him or anyone else? And
so the persona in that case would be
somebody that can eat a shit ton of food and not be one that gains weight while he does.
That's the persona. Is like food's not a problem for me. That's the persona.
I remember it was this the metabolic thing was that a persona you told me about, or was that a different episode we were preparing where you said how I used to go to
how you said you had a
metabolic caloric absorption problem.
Malabsorption.
Yeah, I had a malabsorption thing, which is why I have to basically binge.
Because I don't take in. It was like
I can only absorb 20% of the
so
calories I eat.
So then people won't think I'm bulimic. People will think I have a disorder that just means that I need to eat. It's kind of genius, but yeah, for sure, you're hiding something.
But I was being manipulative. And I guess I was being manipulative too, except I just didn't, when I'm thinking of the unconscious with this poor person, like in hindsight, I remember I was like, how could he leave me for being bulimic? He wasn't leaving me for being bulimic, which would have been his right, frankly, because he does it when we were getting to know each other, long before we moved in together, it was appropriate for me to share this and be transparent that this was still a part of my life. I just was I'm never going to burden anybody by talking about it again. And it destroyed the relationship. And
so sad.
But the persona, I guess, was what I was presenting, if I'm getting this right, was I'd shared that I used to have an issue with it, but I was way beyond it. And that wasn't the truth.
Yeah.
What I didn't want to face was the fear of if I let this part of me, this shadow part, be seen by this partner of mine, and especially with myself, what if I need to do something about it, or what if I need to own the pain and that, and in that, or what if this person leaves? And in that, I didn't give him the choice. I didn't get to find out, he didn't get to consent to being in a partnership with somebody that was unwell, which was really his choice.
Well, and it was so compartmentalized.
It was so compartmentalized.
It's such I think that's what's kind of interesting about this is it's like, it doesn't sound to me like you were consciously really even lying to him. Although, yes, it was a lie, but it's like because it was so compartmentalized for you and you had kind of put it over here, it's like I don't think you even realized how deeply hurt he would be. Of course. Yeah.
It wasn't that I was trying to be unkind or was thinking about it often. It just was, this is my life's albatross to bear. Don't burden other people with it. Nothing's going to ever change. I don't need to.
Sad.
I'm not worried about it. I'm not taking it that seriously, so I don't want them to suddenly start taking it seriously and have it become an issue. And it just was really unfortunate, too, because not only did I not give him the opportunity, which was his right, to consent to being in that partnership dynamic, but I didn't give him the opportunity to be supportive in the times that it was really lonely and really painful for me, and the days that I could have some consciousness and connection to, I wish this wasn't my life story or this wasn't my reality.
You didn't give him the opportunity to be helpful or to support you. You know, it's reminding me of our rift, and that's really, that's how I felt. And we'll talk about that in a moment, but also just that I can relate to the part of you that, you know, that it's interesting to talk about this in terms of persona, because we could also talk about this in terms of trauma or so many other things, right? But today we're focused on that, and it's like, well, I can relate to the persona that's like just this, I have to be, no, you know, my persona's idea might be, you don't reach out to anyone, Katie, because nobody really but your analyst can understand you.
Yes.
And that's a, you know, not only a faulty belief, but it's a faulty belief of that persona. So I can't reach out. I can't let anyone help me. I can't, it's going to be disappointing. Whatever I told myself to keep myself isolated and to keep this persona of like, I got to handle everything on my own all the time.
Well, yes, and let's just say, call out that hypervigilance, hyperindependence of, I can't let myself be seen, I've got to handle it on my own.
Can't be dependent on anyone.
Can't trust other people to be there. My problems are mine to handle. That's a trauma response.
That is.
And this is something to bring in or just be aware of, that hyperindependence, self-separation from community, connection, relationships that would be supportive. I've got to do it on my own. My problems are mine. I don't want to burden everybody else. If they knew, they wouldn't love me. They might leave me. All of that is trauma response. And it's really unfortunate because of the isolation that comes with that. So
yeah, we don't allow ourselves to be met, or even if we aren't met, it's like sometimes just being with someone, even if they can't totally meet you, is better than just, you know, thinking you have to bear everything on your own all the time, you know?
Yes.
Sometimes someone doesn't say something perfectly, but it doesn't matter. It's that, you know, there's a human connection that's so important.
Well, yeah, and that reminds me of what you just touched on a little bit. Katie and I, we've been best soul sister friends for decades now. But there was a point, and anybody that's been watching our show, or I mean, even this episode only, can see that we're dear and we're so close and ever more connected. But there was a point in time where post-rehab, Katie moved into a place of, you went and got yoga certified and went into getting your master's, and you were doing really strong recovery, and I wasn't, and I relapsed pretty quickly and toiled in that for many more years. That was my process and path, and couldn't speak about it, couldn't own it. You'd ask me, you know, how's food going, or how are you doing with that? Oh, it's been a little tough, but could not go into it because of the shame I felt. And that really damaged us to the point where we ended up taking, I think it was about 5 years. And speaking, I'd love to hear a little more about.
Yeah, I mean, it was a really hard time, and I had tried to break through to Diane many times, because I think what was so painful for me was like in rehab we shared so much of our history, of our past. We had a lot of things that were in common.
Very parallel.
Yeah, parallel. Yeah. And it was so hard to be outside and be in recovery. It wasn't hard that she wasn't in recovery, although sure, of course I wanted her to be in recovery, but it was more that like, I get this disease so much, and I felt like, how could you not talk about this with me? Like I'm supposed to be your best friend, and like that. And I didn't realize then that it was the level of shame that you had.
Yeah.
Obviously, I was just like, I just felt like every time we would talk, it was like I was hitting this wall of like, this isn't really what's happening in her life. So it felt inauthentic to me.
Yeah, and that was exactly. Oh yeah, it was so devastating, because where I was coming from at the time is I was so ashamed and felt like I'd failed treatment for the umpteenth time. I'd failed recovery. I was never going to get better because I'd been to treatment. I hadn't gotten recovery together. And I actually, as I was looking at you and we were sharing, part of it was I'd felt I'd betrayed our friend, like because we'd had so many parallels, and like I wanted to rise. And at the time, like feeling like I'd made a best friend, feeling hopeful that recovery was on the horizon, we go out and watching you kind of glow up and be on your rise, and me in the toil and the sickness still. The shame I felt, envy I admittedly felt for where you were headed and wanted so badly to be there with you and to be just like, oh. Like, it's not like I didn't want to be in recovery. And
Of course you did.
of course. And like, I also didn't want to get it on you. I didn't want to get, like, that's the part I just realized. Like, I didn't want to burden you, but I also wanted to protect that you were on your rise, and I didn't want to be an anchor. Like, that's how deep the burden thing went, was like, I don't want to burden you with this and then get in the way of you on your rise. And
so amazing, because meanwhile I'm like going like, I want to receive you, and
and I accept you,
and I accept you in whatever. And I understood and understand that struggle so intimately, so deeply, that it was like I didn't carry any shame or judgment for her. Like, it was just like, oh, I get it. And it was, so it's
and the desperation you had, the reason we took the rift wasn't because I wasn't in recovery. It was because of the separativity of you being like, I accept you, you're safe with me.
But you
please do intimacy and close. Please let me see this part of you. You don't have to be so alone. And I continued to be hyper independent of, I can't let this be seen. And as close as our souls are magnetically drawn to be, I couldn't meet you there. And I remember that phone call. I will always remember. It was years ago now, and I remember the apartment. I remember where I was standing, the whole thing. And you said, I feel like I'm watching you die. I can't stand by and watch you die, which wasn't about rejecting me, I don't think, because I was not in good health. It was that I was refusing to take any accountability for the inauthenticity, for the rift within myself, and the damage it was causing between us.
Yeah, and I think when I said that to you, that was me talking to the complex that was, or we could call it the bulimic persona, I guess. But it was more me saying, like, I can't collude with this part of you. That I can't, because if I just stand by and act like everything's okay, and we'll just pretend like things are fine, and first of all, it would be hollow, which is a disservice to the depth of soul that we actually share together. And secondly, it would be, on some level for me, it felt like how do I say this? When you were growing up, you've had those stories where like nothing was talked about, and nobody said like, we're worried about you, we're so scared, like please,
what's going on? Like, and we see you,
we're struggling. And I thought, like, if I do that, if I just keep being her friend and act like everything's okay,
I'm another person that's reinforcing that. I'm another
person that's not actually seeing the pain that she's in. And she couldn't talk about it. So really, it wasn't me ending the friendship. It was like, I need to step away, but I'm here. I'm here whenever you feel ready. And for me, when you felt ready and you came back and then you practiced over time, she started really practicing being very transparent and authentic. It meant so much, because it's like, oh, there's my friend, Oh, what's happening?
Just remembering how, I talk about how I missed my 20s, and it's like that kind of thing, like this best friendship. We became friends when I was 21.
Yeah.
And I missed so much of my 20s because, 21, 22, because of these parts of myself that I couldn't meet, couldn't own. And what a beautiful thing. I wish that I'd better understood or been able to receive that was it. Because I remember you saying something like, I can't collude with this, or I can't co-sign on this, enable it. And I remember taking a deep breath and my heart just breaking. Friendship breakups are, I think, one of the most uniquely painful kind of separation of relationship, because there's breakups because a romance can't go towards, forward progress, but rarely do we, in friendships that are soul deep, have to say this doesn't work.
Oh my God,
and to
so
name and claim
hard.
that.
I mean, I could have done a better job telling her. Like, I talked about this with my analyst for probably a year and a half. Like, and it wasn't because I was hiding from you. I kept trying to accept what you were giving as like, this is all you could do, and that's okay. You know, that's okay. Like, and I kept trying to make it be okay, and finally I got to a place where I'm like, yeah, it was a disservice to the depth of soul that we share.
Yeah.
You know, and I couldn't like keep having these conversations where I was like, she's just not even being honest with me. And I wasn't mad at you, it was that I knew you were taken over by this other thing.
Well, and that's the thing about these complexes or being over-identified in these ways that are so isolative, when we're not able to own them. The thing about addiction that can be, one of them that's so painful is, I was in a place of inability to meet myself as this is an issue. I was in denial to myself that it was an issue. And in that, I become impermeable or unreachable to the people that love me. And that creates, to pretend otherwise is enabling. And I remember when you said that, basically said, I need to take some space back, the way it reiterated something in me, the fear of I'm not lovable because I'm fucked up. But that's not what you were actually saying. And a deeper part of me knew that. And I remember taking a deep breath and feeling a good for you. Thank you. Because you were right. It was you seeing me and saying, your soul is deeper than this and you are disconnected from that and you're keeping me away from it, but you are not connected to your soul and it is too painful to watch.
It was.
You deny, and it's like, yeah, I can't watch you die of this, but the thing that would make me die of it was the denial that it was a problem and the refusal to continue to meet it and be accountable for this is still a part of me.
That's right.
And I think for my ex, that was a piece of it too. Whether he would have stayed or not to be supportive.
There's a quote in 12-step rooms that is, you're as sick as your secrets.
100%.
You're as sick as your secrets. And I always loved that, because it's like, that's when we're too afraid to be vulnerable, and I have plenty of those things that I still work on, but it's like that shame can multiply and it eats us from the inside, you know?
100%. And I was dying, literally, but inside too, because of the refusal to meet these things. And so, you know, and that's not to say that, I love this, that's not to say that everyone needs or deserves or merits knowing our secrets.
That's right. Yeah.
For
That's
sure.
a good clarification.
For sure. But you're only as sick as your secrets, in the sense of if we're isolated with our secrets. And for a long time now, since 2004, there's a community, a series of books, a weekly website, Post Secret. And it's this project of people sending in visual representations anonymously of their secrets.
I love that.
And Frank Warren, shout out. It's been really a beautiful thing that I've enjoyed over the years, of getting a pulse on the things people carry but we don't see.
Yeah.
The masks.
Yes.
That, like, underneath the mask, it's like pull up the veneer.
Yeah.
And we're not as alone often as we think we might be.
That's like such a good point, because I think so many people, and I've done it, I see my patients do it, but it's like we really believe people's masks. Like we really believe that person has everything.
Has it together.
And it's like, meanwhile...
Well, hi social media and Instagram, like influencer lifestyle
God.
like... You know, and
it's terrible.
It's terrible and it's toxic and it's dangerous. Our tagline is reality that's real, because we will get teary on camera and put it out there. And one of the things Frank Warren on this Post Secret said was, secrets are the currency of intimacy. And I like that, because we weren't able to have that kind of soul intimacy because there were so many secrets and so much separativity. And everybody in the world it wouldn't be healthy to be transparent about all our secrets. But one of the things we were talking about is, you meet the persona first, the masks, what we show outward facing to the world. And then you meet the person. You meet the persona, not the person.
That's right.
Actually, I think it's you meet the persona, which is pieces of the person.
Yeah.
Hopefully, if they're authentic. And so watching, in time, as we move from meeting the forward-facing outer world and we move through the layers of the onion or peel back the petals of the lotus as the relationship blooms, in time, the person becomes more and more revealed, the authentic self. And if the authentic self isn't being revealed at all, or doesn't align with the mask and the persona, that's if we only meet the mask and it stays at the mask out here, or as we go deeper in time, there's a disconnect of what's true and
That's
authentic
right.
and real here. That creates a cap at how deep the intimacy can go.
That's right. That's well said.
Yeah,
I think I'm not sure. There's a bunch of thoughts I had. One, do we want to go into tips and tools and review that, or do we want to talk about a couple more examples? Because one of the things I was thinking of was the just what we've been talking about this whole really episode is, where is persona helpful? Where is it harmful? Where are you conscious of yours? Where might you not be conscious? Where are you conscious of others? Where might you not be conscious? Like all of those things seem so important.
Great journal prompting here.
Yeah.
And just self-reflection to, people think, oh, the masks we wear, or that it's fake somehow. And not necessarily if they're aligned with truth of who we are. But it can be scary. Wouldn't it be nice if wolves always looked like wolves? And how damaging and dangerous it can be if we start to put time into a connection and realize, oh, who you are does not match with who I thought I met or was getting to know, or your shadows, you are so unconscious of them, or
That's right.
resistant to owning and being accountable to them, or unconscious within them, that this feels dangerous for me now. I'm thinking of a different relationship that I've spoken into a bit about somebody. He was deeply, deeply spiritual in ways that were beautiful and very attractive to begin with. And then the deeper into the relationship I got, there were some really dark shadows of control. And when I'd bring up my feelings or hurt feelings in the relationship, hey, this didn't feel so good to me, or that hurt my feelings, it was like, well, I'm the love guru. I'm a bhakti. Bhakti is the yoga of love. I'm a bhakti guru. I teach people about that. And he was so over-identified with that there could be no, I'm sorry I hurt you.
Yeah. Yeah, and spiritual people or spiritual groups in particular often have the biggest shadow, because the greater the light, the greater the shadow. So if you're into consciousness, whether that's the Jungian world, whether that's, you look at some of these yoga teachers who've gotten in big trouble. I think it was Osho had a big scandal. It's like, we're not throwing everything out. But,
He's got some great quotes I really enjoy.
But but there's so many things that are problematic because we're not owning the shadow. And that's so important. And
bypassing in toxic positivity episode.
Yeah. Check that one out if you haven't. But,
absolutely. And it can be just so harmful. And the lack of owning the shadow, or being so
identified with the persona.
Yes, of only good or only this or I'm so that. And I just remember looking to have connection, relatedness, and deep in the relationship by bringing up feelings and tenderness that happen in relationships, and wanting to communicate them to have repair and go deeper. And it was like, well, I'm not a bad person. I'm not a bad person. If you really knew me and loved me, you'd know that I'm a good person and I'm a loving person. And it was like,
It gives me anxiety, honestly, just hearing about it. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Well, and also high gaslighting and validation and all that.
So many problematic things with that.
I learned a lot.
Yeah.
What was so difficult is, I'm not saying you're a bad person or an unloving person. I do love you, and I know you love me, and you're great in these ways, and and.
Yeah, and those were his defenses. That was his being so identified. There's a quote about being so identified with your persona, or that it's problematic, that the civilized man, this is just from the quote, but civilized person, the shadow of it is being so identified with I must be civilized, that your primal instincts, that your dark shadows have no place.
You're wild, you're chaos.
And that will cause imbalance. And this person who had a beautiful heart has a beautiful heart. And also has a lot of crap they're not dealing with. And they're very unbalanced in that way.
I mean,
very unbalanced.
Yeah. It was really tough. And so, just as a tip and tool, considering what are the masks I wear, what are maybe the things I'm not presenting and why, and recognizing that part of being accountable and integrating all of ourselves and authentically and revealing more over time as appropriate, that is how we get the depths and the deeper intimacy and connection we long for. And so that's our responsibility piece, or ours to look at and hopefully ever grow more conscious about and work with. And also paying attention in the connections you're making as as time goes on, and it would be appropriate to divulge more, share more, feeling into, trusting your own intuition, but also, does this align up with my experience of the person, who they say they are, what their values are? Do they seem integrated in their wholeness, for better or worse? Can they be relationally accountable, self-accountable, etc.?
I love that. I think one of the things I would say is so much of this isn't about anything being good or bad, right? Persona is always bad, or it's always good, or it's us just bringing our consciousness to it. Like Diane had said earlier, like, those are some good journal prompts. And actually, I'd encourage you to go back and kind of listen, because, and we can say a couple more here, but it's so true. It's like, just to let yourself explore. What am I showing the world? What am I choosing to show the world?
Yeah, and was there more?
Yeah, I think just what am I choosing to show? What am I choosing to hide? What are my reasons for it? And it's just a way that you can build your own understanding of yourself.
And where was I taught, or where did I maybe learn that this is how I needed to present, or all I could present? Where does that maybe come from? And is that the truth? Do I agree? Does that serve me? And also, do I still align with this authentically? Because hopefully the journey of a lifetime, the gift of a lifetime, is coming home to the truth of who we really are. Hopefully shedding some of the shoulds and the conditioning to really bring forth our most radiantly alive, fully expressed selves, as I like to say. And that absolutely is a process. Of course, giving yourself and having grace for others, that there's room to evolve, shift. You're allowed to change. You're allowed to grow. Hopefully you are. And the people around you too. And so for those of you out there, anyone that's feeling, there's a part of me that, or the way I'm presenting doesn't really match. And what if I'm trapped and everybody in the world, or who I know, they know me as this, and that's not really accurate, or I'm called to explore this piece of me, but will I still be accepted? A story for me about this would be, I've always had this animated sparkle sprite in me, and just playful and loves to just be out there free, and over time, in conditioning and trauma and painful feeling unaccepted, learning to get smaller and smaller. And at the beginning of my a real blossoming experience for me, a turning point, was someone invited me to a dance festival, a small one up in New York. And it was a 3-day or 2-night thing, and music and dancing, and wear the wild outfits and the face gems and the pasty gems or whatever. And I thought, oh my gosh, immediately the heart expansion of that's a fuck yes. Like, I would love to do that. And immediately conditioning wiring, the habituated part was like, boom, slam down. I could never do that. I've never done that. I've always wanted, I could never be somebody that goes to something like this and dances her face off and plays and wears all the sparkle, even though that felt really radiantly magnetic and alive. And so I was grappling with, I want to go, but I can't. And this idea of over-identifying. I'm isolated and only wear dark oversized clothing. Like that's, So then I had this realization, other than this person I'm getting to know who's inviting me to this experience, nobody else there is going to know me. I can go be whoever I want. So go for it. It's a weekend. And I bought all the fishnets and the funky stuff and the sparkles and the glitter. And I went and I danced my face off and I engaged with people and just showed up. And I was so well received. There was a group of us camping and people were like, oh, it's been so great getting to know. People want to be my friend.
Aww.
I'm likable. I can dance and play and wear sparkly things and be so free. And it was so cool because nobody had an imprint or an impression yet. And so a suggestion, a tip, a tool would be, if there's something that calls to you and you're like, oh, I've always kind of wanted to check that out, maybe take a class, or for me, go to the drum circle and dance around and see. And just
let
see
yourself.
In a place where it's low stakes because people don't have this idea or image yet. And another way would be feeling into, hopefully, the nourishing relationships that you have in your world. And that where these people that, what do I know about this person? Do they love me? Am I safe? Is there room for me to grow and change and expand and be celebrated? And starting to take baby steps in that way. When I became really spiritual and moved into that persona more and more, again, someone I've always been, there was fear of, will the people that love me think I'm weird or being fake or trying on something totally phony? And that wasn't your experience of me at all. I felt so celebrated.
No, not at all. I was so glad that you were stepping into that part of yourself.
Yeah, it was very empowering of, I can be more authentic and celebrated, and so can you. The people that are right for you will hold space and celebrate. And if they don't, maybe they aren't your people anymore, and that's okay too. And also there will be other communities out there that will resonate. And I'd love to know anywhere maybe in your life as how and where you've shown up in shifting personas or showing up in new ways, and how was that for you? Or
I think for me, one of the things that came up was just stepping into my authenticity as a yoga instructor. That when I first started, I just felt like I didn't know what I was talking about. I didn't this or that. I didn't have enough experience. And look, to a degree that was accurate. I hadn't done it that long. But now, I found my voice more and more as I've gone along, and just being able to step into the role of, or the persona of, yoga teacher. It's a part of who I am, right?
Yeah.
But being able to really trust that if I'm going to give you a cue, or if I'm going to work with you in some part of your body in a certain pose, that I do know what I'm talking about. And a lot of times I would have this stuff come in of oh, well, you haven't taken enough anatomy or this or that. It's okay, I've practiced yoga for 25 years. I've come to learn that the cues I've given, even when I've been insecure about them, I'll go home and make sure, did I do that right? And it's 99.9% of the time it's oh, that's exactly what I should have said. And I didn't need 5,000 degrees, I just needed my own practice.
And that experience over time does validate that more and more the more we step into these things that are aligned. And I remember when we met each other in treatment, one of the things is we got to go to yoga. And it was so you, this was pre-certification, and you dropped into your body, you shifted in the most stunning way. And when you said, I think I'm gonna get yoga certified, I was like, that tracks, that makes so much sense for you. And I can imagine that there's vulnerability and risk of being in front of a class and practicing and not being a beginner. Yet it was you following something that made your heart feel alive. And learning to trust that ever more and more, the more you put yourself out there. And
the more I realize that it's not so much a persona, it's an actual real part of me, right? When we follow what's alive and what makes us expand, and we actually let ourselves. When we do that, it's like we do uncover more of who we really are, and we can shed some of that persona if it maybe isn't so accurate anymore, doesn't fit.
Yeah. That's that question of, does this serve me or harm? And following your heart expansion in these ways and just getting compassionately curious, like, how does this feel? How does this feel? Does this feel true? Because I really feel like our heart truths,
Oh my goodness.
our heart truths never actually lead us astray, because they're mutually exclusive. I love that. So, anything more, tips and tools wise?
I think I've said, I feel good about it. I think just ask yourself those questions, and of course, as always, like, we want to hear from you your experiences of persona. If you want to share anything from you,
Absolutely. We always love to hear about where you're at in your process, the relationships you've had, where you've been, where you're headed, where you hope to be. It's also worthy. And the more, I would really just like to leave it, I think, with this, which is really trusting that the more you align with your most authentic self, no matter how much of that you're presenting with your persona and the way you, the masks you wear of just immediate interfacing with the collective, or the deeper you go with the people that you know, love, and your tribe, your community, the more authentically aligned you are, that heart truth, that expression, that's where your service to the collective lives. It's where your power lives. It's where your freedom lives. Yeah, your healing, your truth, your freedom. That's the core. That's the heart. So tell us all about it. Thanks for tuning in.
and we will see you next time.
Be sure to like, save, and subscribe. Bye.